Sex. What better show to talk about this deep issue than The Point? We're going to get to the dirty, the nitty-gritty in this week's episode, so make sure you stick around. Welcome back to the smuttiest version of The Point. And yes, we have some excellent topics today, including Measure B. We're going to take a long, hard look at Measure B and try to decide whether or not this is actually meant to protect porn actors and actresses. Then we're going to look at the penetration of pornography in relationships. Is that helping relationships? Could it harm relationships? We'll discuss that a little more. And then finally, we're going to get animated with anime porn. Hentai is something that you see every once in a while when you're searching the internet. In fact, I did some research on it on my own. So we'll discuss that a little bit more. But first, let me introduce our very exciting panelists for today. You definitely recognize Kevin Pereira. He is the longtime host.
If you're speaking to 12 people in the audience, yes. Absolutely.
Oh, stop
I love
it.
that. That's a great way. We're going to get elbow deep in the facts today, kids. Watch out. We're pulling out a fistful of knowledge. I like that. That was very nice.
Kevin
intro.
Pereira, let me tell the audience a little bit about yourself. You are a longtime host of G4's Attack of the Show. You are also the co-founder of the super-creative.tv. And this past October, you launched the Pointless podcast.
I did. You were a guest, by the way. Thank you for coming on. No relation to The Point. I was trying to confuse Google. Maybe they'd cut me the check. I don't know.
By the way, it's really funny. I was on your podcast for the latest episode, and when I was plugging it on Twitter, people were like, "Why are you dissing this guy's podcast? Why are you calling it Pointless?" I'm like, no, that's the name of his show, I swear.
And it's the name for a reason. It's entirely pointless. But you were a fantastic guest, so thank you. And it's a pleasure to be here.
You guys should definitely check it out, especially the episode I was in. All right, Shira Tarrant is an associate professor of women's, gender, and sexuality studies at California State University, Long Beach. She's also the author of a number of books on gender, sex, and power. Her most recent is Fashion Talks, Undressing the Power of Style. Her next book, due out in 2013, is New Views on Pornography. Last but not least, Nina Hartley. She's a legendary adult film actress and director, as well as sex educator and registered nurse. She's also the author of Nina Hartley's Guide to Total Sex, and perhaps most exciting, she's now a two-time panelist on The Point.
Hey! Repeat offender.
All right, thank you so much for coming on the show, you guys. We're going to have a great discussion today. We're going to have a substantive discussion on something that isn't usually thought of as substantive. But I want to start off with a point from the douchiest conservative talk radio show host, Rush Limbaugh. He's talking about Measure B in this next video, so let's hear what he has to say.
Pornography is big business in L.A., where many porn movies are created. On Election Day, California voters not only imposed huge new taxes on themselves, they also made it more difficult for the $7 billion a year porn industry to thrive. Measure B on the L.A. County ballot requiring porn actors to use condoms passed with 56% of the vote. Now, those behind and in the porn game are worried about the effect of the new law on their business. Apparently, porn consumers have a distaste for porn actors using condoms. James Dean, who in the last decade starred in over 1,000 hardcore movies, over 4,000 sex scenes, says the last time we attempted to go all condom, our industry lost sales by over 30%. That's a huge hit to our economy. A court challenge to the new condom laws in the works. Meanwhile, many in the porn industry are worried about the loss of over 10,000 jobs, actors, makeup artists, film editors, and so on. Some porn production companies already threatening to pack up and move. Florida and Las Vegas are potential new porn centers. Now, the new condom rule will go into effect once the Department of Health figures out how to implement it. The dilemma? Do they send the employees to monitor movies in production or just do spot checks? Wow, what a hard choice those people have.
Rush used the word hard too many times in that video. It made me a little uncomfortable. But he makes an interesting point, a point that you agree with, Nina. Can you elaborate a little on that?
Yes, well, Measure B is bad law a number of reasons. First and foremost, it will never stand the First Amendment test because we cannot, entertainment cannot be forced to deliver somebody else's message. The people behind Measure B, Michael Weinstein and the AIDS Health Care Foundation, he has a political bug up his bonnet about the bad messaging that heterosexual porn gives to our young people. And it's not porn's job to message safer sex. It is people at home's responsibility to themselves to practice safer sex. So it's what I watch in the movies and what I do with my partners. We don't learn how to drive by watching Vin Diesel in Fast and Furious 5. We don't learn how spies do their jobs by watching James Bond. And we don't learn about anal sex by watching Rocco and whomever. And so where Rush and I, where Gail Dines has accused me of being a closet conservative is when I talk about personal responsibility. We are always affected by the media around us, pornography, advertising, sports, et cetera, et cetera. And eventually, with luck, I'll be alone in a room with somebody, and no matter what you ever saw or read, no matter what you ever saw or read, no matter what I ever saw or read, what are we going to do right here today to maintain our boundaries, our safety, and our values? And so, but Measure B is bad law for First Amendment. Secondly, we have a really good testing program that uses a very most sensitive, newest test, the PCR RNA test that can detect HIV within 10 days of infection. So it's not a question of, for safety, it's not a question of condoms versus no condoms, it's a question of testing versus no testing.
So that's a great point that you brought up, because I have to be honest, I voted yes for Measure B, but I did reluctantly. And my views on it continue to evolve, and I know it's unfortunate, it's too late now, it's already passed, so it doesn't matter what I think now. But my question to you is, if you have the latest technology in STD testing, why is it that recently there has been a bit of an outbreak with HIV among porn actors and actresses?
Well, the last case of HIV in porn was 2004, 8 years ago. So we had testing started testing using the PCR DNA testing, which was new then, and now PCR RNA testing started in '98. Mm-hmm. So between '98 and 2012, to '98 and 2010, we had 2 cases of HIV transmitted on set. So in terms of HIV mitigation, our program was studied from all over the world because it's really good. It's a community-based organization supported by the people whom it serves, a marginalized, misrepresented group of people who are all thought to be victims, et cetera, and we have 100% compliance. So I go to a set and I don't work with you until you show me your test, and you don't have to work with me if I don't have my test.
I will. Don't worry about it.
No, so,
I trust you.
we have an otherwise rebellious group of young people who are invincible. They're in their 20s. Nothing's going to happen to you in your 20s. All agreeing that we care enough about our health and the health of our coworkers to go get tested. Now the testing window is now going to every 2 weeks. It used to be monthly. Now it's there's subsidies to make it every 2 weeks. So the STD and certainly HIV is not an issue. Because
I think the AIDS and the HIV portion of this is one small subset. A lot of people are talking about sexually transmitted infections, these STIs, and they're saying, well, they're through the roof. This Measure B does not address that. Most STIs are actually through fellatio, and this does not require a condom for that act. So the notion of this is for the safety of the people involved and the people at home, to me, that's a little absurd. I think it's
pure politics.
I think it's politics and people who don't like an industry. And condoms in general, as long as you pull out and pray, everything's fine. And as long as that's the message that we get across to kids, I think we're in shape for a better future.
Well, and also, as a nurse, I believe in comprehensive, age-appropriate sex education and helping people make choices, safer choices. And the condoms alone don't protect against a lot of things. Some of the things that people are worried about, specifically HPV, warts, methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus or MRSA. And
love the dirty talk.
I know.
Continue,
and our skin to skin. It's not about condoms. Condoms. So if I touch part of myself and then touch you before anything else has happened, it's possible to transmit. So we can only make sex safer. Mm-hmm. And if people want to be 100% safe, they'd be celibate, and somehow trust that their monogamous partner really is monogamous. Mm-hmm. So
Can I point out something too as well?
Yes,
like
please.
I love that in California, like the GMO labeling law, that fails. Like I don't have a right to know what's going in my body, but now my taxpayer dollars have to go towards regulating what's going into someone else's body.
Yeah.
Like, are we really going to spend dollars and cents for someone to sit in a room with a black and white CRT television?
Can you imagine the HR craziness? You know, you cannot forcing a government employee to sit down. It's
the minimum
unenforceable.
cost.
You know what? Also, I want to jump in on the vote itself because this did not pass with an overwhelming majority. This passed with around 56%, which says to me as a political scientist that there were a lot of ambivalent yeses, much like yours.
Yes.
Because to vote no is almost like you're saying, I don't care about STIs. I don't care about HIV.
It sounds
like you're saying no to condoms, which is not the case.
Which that's not the case. And the other thing is, if you really care about not transmitting HIV and STIs, then the money needs to go into much earlier education where it should be happening, which is not in pornography, like you point out, but in the schools, in community programming, you know, and so the people who are behind Measure B, I would love to see them take that same money and really pour it into effective sex education.
They spent $4.5 million on billboards and advertising and outreach, and how many people could have been treated? How many clinics could have been set up? How many school outreach programs could there have been for $4 million for two cases of HIV in 12 years?
And to be clear,
do you guys see this as opening the floodgates for overregulation of the industry?
Yes.
I do. You know, years ago when we had Republicans in office, they kept trying the obscenity route, and we beat them in court all the time. And when the Democrats came in, many in my business were like, "Oh, we're so happy now." The Democrats, like, no, Democrats are regulation happy. And sure enough, and so in 2004, Michael Weinstein of the AIDS Healthcare Foundation stood up in a community meeting and praised our clinic for the great job it was doing, and that we did not need any help. Something in 8 years, I think he saw profit potential in being the testing person, and so he completed a 180. And
I think regardless of where people stand on the issue of pornography, regardless of whether people like it or don't like it, we really need to pay attention because it's a lightning rod for very serious civil liberties issues. And the incursion, this is an incremental incursion into our privacy rights, into our civil liberties, and we are fools if we don't pay attention to what's happening.
I think there are a lot of people, real quick, that would love to see this industry regulated out of existence.
Yes.
And that's just the bottom line. They just don't agree with it. But what I think they're being short-sighted about is, yes, you might say a porn star, whether male or female, that's disgusting to you, that's fine. But you know what? I work in entertainment. I know a lot of sound guys. I know a lot of audio guys. Sound is audio. I know a lot of camera guys. I know a lot of lighting guys, editors, directors. I know a bunch of people that live off this industry, and what they've basically done is say, hey, you're no longer welcome in Los Angeles, even though you're a professional.
So let's talk about that a little bit. Is that a reality? Are we going to see production companies moving to Las Vegas, to Florida? Do they really want to move out of Los Angeles and go to a place like Florida?
There are only 2 states in the union that have made it legal to shoot pornography: California and New Hampshire. So there's no case law in Florida. So if anyone in Florida wants to bust there's already plenty of porn production in Florida. And if anyone wants to, bust someone there and charge them with pimping and pandering, then they can go through their state Supreme Court. But in 1988, the Rosebud Supreme Court voted 8-0 in favor of legalizing the shooting of pornography here in California. So the big companies might move out, but the smaller ones, again, the cameras are barely bigger than this now, so you can do a lot of, pornographic shooting.
The performers are larger than the cameras.
Pretty much, yeah. It used to be cameras where, John, you couldn't do it incognito. Now, it's a suitcase. So I don't think everyone's going to leave town. There's more streaming video, there's more direct-to-internet stuff going on. What we're going to maybe lose is the beautiful big blockbusters with, fire trucks and helicopters in them for some. So I don't think they're really going to make good on their
the big budget productions that make the real money. Those will leave town. The guys with we know, I know, porn can be shot in the back of a van, and they sometimes don't even get those ladies to their destination. And that's very rude of that bus. Very rude. They thought they were getting a ride, but because they can start up a production company overnight. film the kind of porn that they want, upload it, and by the time someone shows up at their door to find them a few $1,000s, they've already moved on to the next production company under a different name.
Yeah.
So it's not actually going to be effectual. It's just going to cost us useless money.
It costs useless money. It's unconstitutional because of the prior restraint on free speech. I cannot be forced to give your message. It's also going to be unconstitutional because it's unenforceable. There's no way to enforce this, and it's only for permitted shoots, which are barely 20% of the shoots out there. It doesn't cover still shoots. It doesn't. It's ill-conceived and very politically motivated. Michael Weinstein has a very large ego, and I think he saw potential profit for him in this.
Let's talk about enforcement a little more, because the one thing that I found fascinating is this kind of adds insult to injury to production companies, because look, with the emergence of internet porn and amateur porn, already these big production companies were facing a huge hit, and now all of a sudden you're saying, well, you got to use condoms in your pornography, and for one reason or another people aren't really into that, which, you know, let's talk about that a little bit before I continue on enforcement. What is the obsession with raw dogging it?
Well,
thank you for using the technical term, first and foremost. I appreciate that, Anna.
Pornography is a fantasy. Movies are fantasy. We don't want to see the wires holding Tom Cruise up above that building in Dubai. We don't want to see the airbag that the stunt man falls into. So we want, you know, in pornography, no one gets sick, no babies, no disease. It's just, whoa, your shirt is gray, I must have, it's cartoons. Porn is live action cartoons. It's not meant to create actual sexual situations where people in real life, and so you don't want to see, and also in real life most people do have to use condoms, and quite frankly, when I'm alone in my room wanking it to porno, I want it
you
on
want
natural.
the full fantasy.
Now market forces. If someone wants to make movies that are safer sex and advertise them as safer sex movies and let people who want them go there, and if they put us out of business, power to them.
Well, you know that's not going to happen.
And
There's nothing to stop it. There's no one to stop anyone from making safer sex movies.
But the other thing that could happen to the market, and let the market decide, is that because condoms are only required in anal and vaginal intercourse, it might mean that you just simply don't film those scenes, and that we see more of other kinds of scenes, because there's plenty of that out there. I mean,
that would mean them having an imagination.
Well,
I just heard 2013 is the year of the blowjay.
Right.
So I got excited. I'm like, yes.
All right, so let's go back to
on the internet.
enforcement a little more. Because with amateur porn, I mean, how do they enforce condom use in
They don't know. They don't know how they enforce it yet. Is it a dude in a dark room TSA style that's watching reel to reel, 8mm style? Is it the cops on set SWAT kicking doors down and inspecting things with a magnifying glass?
Like prohibition, like it's a speakeasy, and like the secret symbol comes on when like the inspector comes in, and everybody
and as a
puts on a
director,
condom.
if a condom inspector did come to my set, I would stop the scene. I would say, there are the condoms, there are the gloves, but my performers are not trained SEALs who are here to get it up for you. So we can sit here and have tea and potato chips and just you hang out and wait, because they're not monkeys in a zoo, you know, working for you. And so there's just no way.
Again, on all the while, we are paying for this. We are paying for that. Don't we have potholes to fill?
Thank you.
Teachers to give a bonus to. And that wasn't a sexual euphemism, the filling of the pothole. I want to be clear about that. Like, don't we have better uses of this money?
We do. That's an excellent point.
Yeah.
And the more we talk about this, the more I realize my
crazy.
vote probably wasn't the best vote. But, you know,
but it makes sense. Well, condoms are good, but condoms are effective in private when you and I can talk to each other and about what's going on an industrial setting. They're just not practical.
But you know, just to play devil's advocate, we did this story about a bunny ranch in Nevada, and basically all of the prostitutes at this bunny ranch are forced to wear condoms while they engage in any type of sexual activity.
Because their partners are not tested. In our business, everybody's tested.
That's okay, so that's a good point. But at the same time, there was a study that compared porn actors and actresses to the prostitutes at this bunny ranch, and what they found was that you have higher instances of sexually transmitted diseases among porn actors and actresses in Los Angeles compared to you know, the prostitutes at the brothels. So you know, you hear information like that. You hear about the cases of HIV and AIDS, and I mean, it's the worst possible sexually transmitted disease you could possibly get.
We've had two.
But 2 is significant. I mean,
in LA County in 12 years, they had 35,000 cases. So why is Michael Weinstein sticking his nose into pornography, which has 2 cases with the There's $4 million and there's 800 new cases per quarter. Consistently, year after year after year. So, Mr. Weinstein, stop worrying about us and go worry about actual people who are being really hurt.
And by the way, this is the construction workers saying we don't want to wear hard hats. You know what I mean? Like the porn stars themselves are the ones saying this is a bad law, we don't want this, and they're the ones that are at risk the most with all these studies. So if they don't have a problem with it, and you have a problem with it, maybe you shouldn't have sex with an adult film star, or have sex with someone who has had sex with an adult film star.
And for people who do get so worried about how risky we are, I get tested anywhere from 12 to 18 times a year. I'm asking people at home, when were you tested? Do you know your status? Have you ever been tested? Do you know? No, do you know? I didn't think so. So it's safe first sex. We cannot make the world a child-safe day nursery, and we cannot reduce the risk to zero. So we are undertaking a risk. So I wear my seatbelt, I wear sunscreen, I wear earplugs in clubs, I wear sunglasses. I'm reducing my risk. I'm going to die one day, but I'm reducing my risk of getting skin cancer, losing my hearing. So we reduce the risk as we are able. But after a while, you cannot reduce it to zero. The stunt union has a rule book 2 inches thick, and they lose 6 guys every year. But do they say, we have to shut down Hollywood because 6 stunt people lost their jobs? No, it's a risky job. And when I go to work, I'm not risking a broken neck from jumping off a building, but I am risking other things, and I'm okay with that. If I wasn't okay with that, I would do another job.
So it's a personal liberty issue for you?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, Nina, I'm going to let you have the last word on that. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to talk about pornography in a relationship. Can it help? Can it hurt? We'll delve into that topic and more. Welcome back to The Point. I mean, we're pretty much discussing very, very detailed information about everyone's porn habits. So I love it. I hope we delve into it a little deeper in this segment. By the way, I don't mean to make all of these sexual puns.
Sure.
I swear.
Of course you don't.
It's an accident. Our next point is sent to us by Dr. Carol Queen. She's the founding director of the Center for Sex and Culture in San Francisco, and she's talking about porn in relationships. She thinks that it could actually be a positive thing. So let's take a look at what she has to say.
I'm Carol Queen, PhD. I'm staff sexologist at Good Vibrations and the founding director of the Center for Sex and Culture in San Francisco. And my point is that porn is not just a medium of sexual entertainment, although it is that, but it's also a really interesting way for couples to share information and experience around sexuality. A lot of couples watch porn together, and I'm talking about all kinds of couples, all kinds of adult couples of every stripe and sexual orientation. And the thing about watching porn together is that you can do all kinds of different things with it. You can treat it like it's any other movie, and you can just talk together and exchange your ideas and say what you like and say what you don't like, and oh, that person's a good actor, that person can't deliver lines to save their life, or woo, are they really doing that? Can you do that in real life? You can communicate about it as though it's media, because it is. And in the meantime, you get to know each other better and what you like and what you don't like, and don't ever ask me to do that, and wow, could we try that sometime? What do you think? And well, I don't know, I think you have to be a trained professional to do that, but what about if we got this and did it with that and did it there? You can enliven a long card trip this way, remembering movies that you've seen. Many people use it as a sort of a foreplay space of, hey, I'm feeling a little frisky. You want to watch a movie? Yeah, which movie do you want to watch? This movie, that movie. And you can use it that way. You learn more about whether or not it depicts sexuality correctly by talking to your actual human being partner about whether or not it depicts their sexuality correctly. No, you know what? It does not make me come when you ejaculate on the small of my back. Where did you ever get that idea? And some partners don't like the idea that their partner is going to watch porn because they get jealous of the idea that they're going to see other people naked, which is true, you will, but you see a wide range of people naked when you look at images these days, and plus, you're the person that's naked with them in bed, and that has got to count for something. And also because they might bust out into masturbation. Another good way to say, if you're doing it together, watching it together, you might bust out into partner sex, but masturbation is part of almost all of our lives, and talking about that together, as a matter of fact, is another great way of exchanging information about who we really are sexually. Porn is just a tool for that, but it can be a great tool. And if you want to know more about the Center for Sex and Culture, that's at sexandculture.org. If you want, you can follow me on Twitter, Carol Queen. Thanks.
I love Dr. Queen's video. That was excellent.
Is the election over? Carol Queen 2012.
Thank you.
I love her.
She's even cooler in person. She's the coolest.
I want to watch
She's
porn
awesome.
with her.
I love how open-minded she is. You know, oftentimes when I think about a long-term monogamous relationship, you know, all of us have this feeling, right? There are only so many ways you can cook a steak, right? And you know, you can pan fry it, you can put it in the oven, you can broil it, whatever. But
How are you having sex?
Hold on.
What is going on?
I swear
Sometimes you
I'm
can
getting
marinate
to
it
a
in some
point
weird
here.
stuff for an hour.
But you know, I'm making an analogy to sex in a monogamous relationship. It's still a steak. You get a little tired of it. You know, you want to taste something different. I'm not saying anything.
Sometimes you invite some chicken to the plate. Maybe you get some young quinoa in the room and they hold the camera. I don't know. I'm not judging.
But Shira, is pornography a great way to spice things up in a monogamous relationship where things can get a little bland?
Well, first of all, I have to agree with everybody. Carol Queen is amazing. She and I were on a panel together about pornography not so long ago for the Momentum Conference, which is all about positive sexuality and getting conversations on the table, and she is awesome. And I wish that more of us could have that enthusiasm and fearlessness around talking about sex and pornography, which is what's important. So your question is, could porn bring more spice to monogamous relationships? Absolutely. I don't think porn is the only answer or a cure. So I think to look too heavily to porn to solve everything is going to possibly be disappointing, but it can be amazing, and it can be ways, like she said, to like float trial balloons, you know?
Yeah, a lot of people are a little uncomfortable with introducing pornography to their relationships. I mean, I find it hard to believe that one person has never watched porn, they're not into it, they don't masturbate and all that stuff. But you know, a lot of people feel uncomfortable approaching their significant other with the thought of pornography in their relationship. Hey, like we're about to get it on, why don't we turn this on, maybe get some ideas, maybe we spice things up. How do you approach that? I mean, Kevin, I'm curious as a man, like how would you approach that to a woman that you're dating?
Well, I normally have it playing from the moment I open my front door. Like it's just on.
That makes things easy.
And if it's a conversation piece, that's fine. I actually I don't want girlfriends to know that they make them that large. So I try not to show a lot of pornography to anybody that I'm dating. But I think, you know, Carol said it best. Like it is, you know, with somebody that I've been dating, someone that I'm having a sexual relationship with, which does not imply that I'm dating them sometimes, you can say, hey, let's watch this thing. And what do you think about X? How do you feel about Y?
Yeah.
You know, do you want to go to a Motel 6? I know 20 black guys.
It doesn't have to be in person, which could be intense. You know, we're on our phones all the time. It can be like, what do you think of this? LOL. And then like, or what, you know?
So what do you start off with? Do you start off with like the romantic softcore porn? Do you start off with the bukkake and like get right to it? Or
now we're talking.
More and more women are liking harder and harder stuff. Now, when I first started making porn, men would come to the conventions, and then eventually they have their girlfriends who would be looking everywhere around. And after a while, girlfriends would be in the line getting autographs for their boyfriend, and finally girls were in the line getting autographs for themselves. So young women, some young women are creating their own libraries of movies that work for them. Many women love watching gay porn. The way that men like watching girl, lots of women like watching gay porn.
Really?
It's more of what they want. You know, I'm a bisexual person, so I understand heterosexuality. I don't understand it. It's like, how can you not? I like every naked person myself, but lots of women like watching gay porn. Monogamy, there's a great book called Mating in Captivity by Esther Perel that I recommend to everybody. But the one thing that never runs out of time, space, or distance are emotions and feelings. And so if we're going to be truly intimate, I'm going to share my deepest fears with you and expose myself to you and trust that you're not going to dump on me and vice versa. Then hugging and kissing and humming and humming never lose their interest, because what is boundless are our fantasies and our feelings. Emotions have no end. And so real monogamy, I keep going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And if I'm being bored, getting bored making love with you, I think that'd be really hard to do. So what does that say about me that, that I'm just looking at the surface and go, I'm done with that? It's like, no, I'm not done with that because there's another door in my heart that I haven't looked into yet. And
that's a great way of looking at it.
Yeah, and another issue around porn and couples and monogamy is that there needs to be consent. So it's not the case that porn is always good or it's always bad. But what are you two coming together and consenting to? Like, is someone a vegetarian? Maybe you're not serving steak, So when I hear people talk about, especially women, like my husband or my boyfriend is watching porn, I'm really freaked out. The issue is not the pornography. The issue is the secrecy, the dishonesty, the silence, the fear, the taboo, all those are the issues that we really need to also be addressing, because it could be porn, it could be some other issue.
And also, just one quick question about that. I think a lot of women who get a little upset at their significant other watching porn. I mean, I don't think any woman actually thinks, "Oh, my husband's watching porn. This is like him cheating on me."
They do.
Some do.
But that's amazing to me.
I know, but some do.
I'm dating a girl like that right now who I've had to explain, like, I don't have a deep-seated emotional connection to the women in my 12 browser tabs.
Right.
I don't know them. I'm not going to chat with them. I don't care about their likes and dislikes. Like, they are serving a purpose for me, so I don't finish in 3 seconds with you tonight.
There you go.
If she could just understand that, things would be a lot easier. And now she does, because I explained that to. No, I've had that conversation with her, and she got it because at first, she had relationships in the past where there were intimacy issues in the bedroom, there were some sexual issues, and so the boyfriends in the past were escaping their responsibilities with her. They were escaping that intimacy
that's not
and going to the
about
internet.
porn.
And that's not about porn.
Something else.
That's about their relationship, and that's not the reason I was watching.
And a lot has been, most of the ink spilled about porn is all the horrible things it does to female body awareness. And the difference between most porn women and most regular women is grooming. Because in porn, unlike in Hollywood or on the catwalk, all kinds of body shapes. Not hardly one chapter in one book by, I think, Naomi Wolf talks about the impact on male self-image of watching pornography. These men are, quite frankly, twice as big as you. They last an hour.
You don't have to gesture my way when you're saying this.
No,
by the way, that could be any man watching, not specifically me.
So everyone talks about, those poor girls, those poor girls, those poor girls. Oh my gosh, they must think they have to look all this way. No one ever talks about those poor boys or those poor boys or those poor boys. What is porn is a cartoon.
I feel like women in porn come in all shapes and sizes.
They
there's
do.
BBW porn.
Absolutely. April Flores.
Queer, April, love her.
Yeah.
Little Lupe on the other end of the spectrum.
4'10" and 85 pounds.
But this is where, we also need to have critical media literacy. So, we don't think that Disneyland princesses are real women, but we need to be having conversations about beauty and what we see in advertising and what we see in movies and what airbrushing is and what we see in porn. And so we need to be doing this age appropriately, really early.
We're also seeing an emergence. I mean, I love that you guys mentioned grooming, which I think is the number one thing that people refer to when it comes to the social impact of pornography among women. But also, people are starting to do some dangerous things, like anal bleaching is one thing. You hear stories about, and this is mostly happening in India. We did a story about that, where they're also doing bleaching of the vagina, which amazes me.
Shaving mutton chops, and sometimes you can nick.
Well, no, because and of course in India, lighter skin is very much a caste issue. So the further south you go, the darker. The further north you go, the lighter, and the higher in the caste system you go, the lighter. Dark skin is very much considered déclassé there.
But is that the fault of pornography?
And then we need to be looking at issues of racism and that pesky problem of racism and skin tone bias and things like that, which is not caused by porn. Porn certainly isn't interrupting it when there's bleaching.
Right.
But that's where we need to be savvy consumers.
Yes.
We're not helpless to the porn industry in that way.
And there's so much out there. Pornography is this ginormous umbrella. So Christianity, well, there's Pentecostals, there's Anglican, there's how many different sects? 1,000 different Christian sects that all identify as Christ believers. Pornography is at least that varied. So on one hand, you have the very mild Abby Winters, which are natural girls next door from Australia, ungroomed, unmade up, gamboling in meadows and climbing trees without their knickers on. And all the way to wow, that is some, of course, then go to the fetish porn, which is, corsets and high heels and makeup and all kinds of alterations on the body, piercings and tattoos and things, and everything in between. There's porn that I find completely, quite frankly, distasteful and ugly, and porn I find boring. And porn that I find fun and silly, and porn that I find arousing. So it's just like any movie.
Let's talk about distasteful and ugly, because I feel like there has been a lot of emphasis on that type of pornography as of late. There's questions of whether or not men are becoming desensitized to having sex with their significant other, because you're watching pornography, you're watching fisting and double penetration and all of this crazy stuff. You see videos where women appear to be degraded. I understand that it's consensual, but it's the whole purpose is to make it look like she's being degraded. And does that have any social implications? Are we seeing men start to expect more from women as they watch this type of pornography?
Well, there have been studies that show that men are getting erectile dysfunction at earlier and earlier ages because of their the oversaturation of pornography that they're exposed to from a much younger age on the internet. Now, again, this isn't the fault of pornography. This could fall back to parenting or broadband internet if you want. But the fact is that they can see 50 to 80 to 100 different women in one session of masturbation versus the one partner they're going to have for that session, that creates a problem for them, unfortunately. And that's a real problem that has been studied by people that wear lab coats and have stethoscopes. But you were...
Well, this is where my area of work comes in a lot. Like, what is the impact of pop culture, media on our ideas about gender and sexuality and all of those things? And that this is true, that some researchers are finding more erectile dysfunction, and then there are researchers in Sweden who are finding that among younger men that they're very, very able to distinguish between fantasy and reality. And then there's another story that, another research that says something else. So I think the jury's still out on that because it's so new and it's happening so fast. But we can't address the issue of degradation or power stuff. I mean, the sexiest sex has power play involved often, so we can't just get rid of that. But again, it's not only about porn, it's what are we understanding about sexism? And then what are we understanding about fantasy? And what are we understanding about reality? And
socialization.
And socialization.
But are we seeing just
and the war on women,
genre?
the war on women in legislation, like that's harming actual women's bodies.
Oh, tell me about it. I know, I rail against that on a regular basis.
So if we see consensual BDSM, that is not harming my right to birth control.
Yeah.
It's a different story. We need to be able to distinguish.
And to get back to the question here about like the extremity, this degradation, this pushing it, I think all forms, all genres are now at this point in time, because we've seen it all, as you were saying, we can do it all. You have to, they're being pushed to extremes because they want to get to places that haven't been done before. But that happens on all sides of porn. There's also women in stilettos that crush men and degrade them as well. It all depends what you're into, but you can find an extreme form of that no matter what genre you want.
Extremely, face stroking and gazing and all kind. There's all these. There's James Dean gaze.
I saw one where they just put on a Dave Matthews Band song and cried.
And exactly.
And that was it. It was 5 minutes, and I finished twice. No refractory period. It was insane.
But when people, since everything is a mirror to us, if I look at something and get very upset by seeing it, the tendency I don't like this feeling, I want that to go away, as opposed to I don't like this feeling, wow, what's going on here? What is that triggering in me? How interesting. 4-year-olds say, you make me feel bad, you stop that. Adults go, wow, I need to look at my feelings and my reactions and take responsibility for them. I'm not a child. I have the power of discerning fact from fantasy. And yes, I can say this is ugly, or I don't like it, or I think it might not be good for people to see it, but my feelings are mine to handle, and it is the most important thing that people need to understand about. And this is also why pornography, you need to buy California pornography because it's legal here. We have age limits, we have model releases, that we're informed consent. And if you don't buy, made in California porn, you just don't know if it's some podunk, garage in somewhere. You don't know that some
wood-paneled basement somewhere. I'll watch it, but I will not buy it. I will not vote with my dollar.
It's very easy to get lost in this upsetting, horrifying, disgraceful things never before imagined visuals and get stuck in, oh my gosh, those poor people, versus oh wow, I feel really challenged by this. What does that mean? I feel challenged by this. And you can also look for more bland porn. There's so much out there that I consider snooze-worthy. Pornography, but we don't ever hear about that because the people who hate porn keep popping up the most outrageous images they can possibly find because they want you to vote yes on Measure B, right, or vote against free expression, or vote against birth control, or whatever.
Okay, look, at the risk of making this segment longer than it has been, and by the way, it's been a great segment, I have to ask someone who has worked in the industry what the appeal is of, gaping orifices. Because
I get it, yes.
You could also ask the consumer, but
okay.
that's fine.
No. So my understanding of this is going back to porn as cartoon.
Yeah.
So porn's a fantasy, and so in fantasy we can have sex underwater, we can have sex in outer space without a spacesuit, we can have sex with 1,050,000 guys and not get hurt. It's bigger, more, wow. And also when you have the level of sexual repression that our culture is still coming out from, there's some segment of the audience that is like, yeah, more, yeah, because if you've been, they want it really dirty because they've been told, they've been having their hands whacked when they've been touching themselves since they're very little, and so they can get. I think the interest in most extreme porn comes from, honestly, call me Freud, potty training and the parents teaching the child about their own body and whether or not it's okay to put your hand on your diaper. And most of us get negative messages about our body before we're verbal. So the original sin is not, Eve taking the apple of the tree of knowledge. It is parents passing forward their own damage and harm around their bodies and sexuality onto their children before the children have a chance to go, hey, what the heck are you doing? And that gets stuffed in there and it expresses itself all kinds of unhealthy ways.
Kevin, as a consumer.
Yes, as a consumer.
Add to that?
I think it was more the yeah. That's mostly what I'm shouting at my computer at all hours of the day. So yeah, I think that's it.
It's like a sporting event, I mean,
it's like NASCAR with assholes.
No, it's like
just a whole
football.
pit crew in there.
It's like football, It's you get really into it on an emotional level. You want more. You want bigger crashes. You want longer. And
no helmets. Damn it.
No fire suits.
It's not fun unless someone's getting a concussion.
So I'm getting a little commentary from the peanut gallery, and everyone's like, favorite genre. So I have to ask you guys, favorite genre. Let's start with you, Nina.
I like illustrated porn. Honestly, because I'm into BDSM in my private life, and I like looking at, and honestly, with video porn, I can tell, that was 2:00 in the morning, she's bored, so I'm too much of an insider, so I don't watch a lot of video porn. There is some that I like, but I like illustrated.
All right, we're going to talk about hentai in the next segment,
yes.
So I can't wait to hear what you have to say about that. You don't have to share if you don't want to. Go ahead. Awesome.
In real life BDSM, or no, I should say in porn life BDSM, because in real life I'm into illustrations.
I got to go back to art school.
Yes.
I go in phases. I don't have. I feel like it's limiting myself to pick a favorite. That's like someone who's like, I only like country music. No, you know what? I could finish to anything. And sometimes I get a 70s phase. Sometimes I want a towel that's half obscuring the lens, and I want to know it came from a real college dorm. Sometimes I want to believe there is a strip club in Ibiza where everybody's fucking.
You have been doing your homework.
I stayed up all night researching for this.
Researcher.
I didn't know I could be a journalist, but I got it in me.
We're going to let Kevin have the last word.
Really? Because I think, don't you want to say what genre?
As the host of the show, I have full control.
Yes.
So you like it when the woman's in charge in the porn. I got it.
Hit the nail on the head, actually. All right, so let's take a break. When we come back, hentai porn, animation porn, what's up with that, and other stuff that you guys will enjoy. Welcome back to The Point. Our last point isn't really a video. We made a graphic on something known as hentai, okay? So it's a little graphic, all right? So earmuff your eyes, as Jake would say sometimes. But let's take a look at it. All right,
okay. So do you want me to describe in depth what we're seeing here?
No. Actually, why don't you describe in depth what hentai porn is? Because I feel like you might do a better job than I would.
My Twitter profile says that I'm an amateur hentai expert, but I it's not a genre that I seek out. It's a genre that I know exists, but it's there's anime and manga or manga depending upon which Magic the Gathering tournament you're at. But then there's hentai, which is normally we see the most extreme depictions of hentai, which is animated or cartoon sex. Sometimes it's fantastic or fantastical, I guess, whimsical with tentacles and angels and demons and all that stuff. And Americans typically are exposed to the most extreme hentai, but hentai can actually be cuddling and kissing as well. It's a whole genre that is quite popular over there, and people read it openly on subway trains.
What's amazing to me is how broad it is, and you touched on that a little bit, because you'll have the extremes. You'll have the extreme where it appears that a young woman or girl is being raped.
It appears a young schoolgirl has 40 tentacles in her, and they happen to be her uncles.
And it looks violent and uncomfortable, but then I like that you also emphasize that there's a more benign version of that people are also into. But I have to be completely honest, I knew it existed, kind of. I mean, we've done a lot of stories about sex in Japan and how, we've done stories on men in Japan who have fallen in love with inanimate objects.
Yeah.
It's kind of incredible. And hentai porn is fascinating in and of itself, but for the first time ever, I looked at a few videos this morning, and I have to tell you, it was a sobering experience.
Welcome to the rest of your life.
Yeah,
Your eyes.
And I don't know if
what did you see? Did you see the softer core stuff, or did you see the crazy rage demon?
There was this one. I'm going to get graphic, but it is what it is. The first one I saw was a very, very young-looking woman, basically having a penis put in her mouth and also in her vagina as she's doggy style, and they're just going at it, and she sounds like she's in pain, like she's not enjoying it, and it almost sounds like she's being raped, to be honest with you. Then at the end, when they both finish, I mean, it's just like a fire hydrant has just been run into by a car. It's just like, I've never seen so much semen in my life. And then I saw the tentacle porn as well. So I was fascinated by this, and I'm wondering, Nina, I want to start with you. What is your thought on that? Because do you think that this is something that is illustrative of what the Japanese community thinks about sexuality and porn? Do you think that that's looking into it a little too much, and it's just a type of fantasy?
It's certainly a cultural thing. We have to remember first, Japan is not a Christian country, and so what we consider normal sexual boundaries, normal sexuality, are heavily influenced by Judeo-Christian values, and that did not really get introduced there till after the war. And there's still, it's mainly an animist culture. So their whole ideas about nudity, about prostitution, about sex work are completely different from us, from our values on those topics. And it's a very low violence country. It's a very homogeneous culture, and so they do understand the difference between fantasy and reality. There's, for the population, it's very low rape. There's very low sexual violence. It's creeping up, but still such a fraction of ours, it's not even in the same ballpark.
Even teen pregnancy is very rare in Japan.
Well, condoms are the primary form of birth control in Japan and have been since the war. Everyone just accepts that you're going to use rubbers. The idea that if you look at live action Japanese porn, the women are often looking like they don't like it because female modesty is still very prized there, and the gender relations are still what we would consider ossified. They're very you still have to get the T girl in the office,
and also a lot of the AVN stars. They call AVN stars in Japan. A lot of the most. I shouldn't say most. I don't know the percentage, but a bulk of that industry is actually owned by the mafia, and it's run by the mafia.
Yes.
So there is a chance that performer actually is a reluctant performer, unfortunately.
Actually, or they don't sign model releases because then they have plausible deniability. It's not me. So for them, it's about saving face. So in a lot of the porn, the women are perfectly willing to get paid very well in cash, but they don't sign the release. They can say it wasn't me. It wasn't me. That's why we don't get live action Japanese porn in this country, because the paperwork doesn't match up. Because to sell a movie here, we have to have proof of age, proof of consent, and they don't do that over there.
Do you think the hentai though, because like we were just saying, like,
and remember that hentai, no real people were used, so they can be depicted of any age, and because there's no actual people.
In the United States, though, it's a little different. They can't be depicted as someone who's underage.
Actually, if it's animated or illustrated, it can. The Supreme Court said this because no actual children. It is a picture, it's a drawing, it's a painting, it's an idea.
Cartoon? I mean, how do you
Exactly.
ever hold up
But
her animated ID to the camera before telling you her likes and dislikes? Like that doesn't make any sense.
But I think that hentai, and especially with depictions of children and all, the extreme things that you were seeing, raises really important issues that we were talking about earlier, which is it's an opportunity for us maybe to talk about what our boundaries are and what we like and don't like and what we find offensive or what we find arousing. And so for me, when I see depictions of children animated, that is a no-go. That is, for me, no. And I'm very clear about that. And I think for any of us as consumers of media or porn, we need to be identifying that and having conversations like this openly about it without demonizing, but saying, here's what's okay, here's what I like. And it is also interesting with hentai that what the conversations in the US seem to really focus around the most outrageous, when there are so many different subgenres that focus more on young boys, that aren't as rape-y or overtly rapist, that we don't really focus on. And that is curious to me. What does it say about our culture?
I also wonder if this censorship itself does not breed that sort of extremity when it comes to the adult industry there. Because, look, we were just saying that the 30% drop in sales when we put condoms on actors in the US, when you have to pixelate pretty much the best parts of the porn in Japan, they actually sell hardware devices that cost hundreds of dollars. They have to pinpoint to try to depixelate them.
Really?
Yeah, if they have to pixelate that, then you don't have to pixelate the tentacles. You don't have to pixelate the cartoons, so of course they're going to gravitate towards that.
Sure. MacArthur put that in place. They had a very lively sex culture and legal prostitution in Japan until the war, and then MacArthur came out. He did one good thing. He told his soldiers, you may not rape Japanese women. If you will be court-martialed, and so there's very low, unlike in Germany after the war, there's very low American on Japanese women rape after the war. But he shut down the established sex business there as well, because imposing Western values on a culture that was not Western in any way. And then 65 years later,
they got Taco Bell and tentacles. We did it, America.
right.
So is there a possibility that this animated porn can replace pornography, period? Because of the fact that there are no real boundaries. They're not real people, so you can do whatever you want with it.
Because they're not real people, I think it will never overtake, because sometimes you want to watch a real person. And then sometimes you want to watch fantastical people floating in space with alien octopuses.
Right.
And so you get both.
Yeah, I mean, there's the traditional anime style. There's now Western hentai, which is like a more traditional Western cartoon style. There's 3D. There's like ILM style CGI,
and then super
epic
romantic
features.
Stuff with the big giant manga eyes and the boys in Fauntleroy suits. But think about it, as a woman.
How long is that over my shoulder, by the way? I just noticed that. Thanks for the heads up, guys.
So speaking as a woman, if I could control the tentacles, I wouldn't mind some tentacle porn if I could make it do what I wanted it to do. Because, fingers are good, toys are good, erections are good, but sometimes a wiggly thing, that could be fun, so I get it. But I have to be careful. Octopuses have beaks in the middle, and that I'm not so down with. They don't have a tongue, they have a beak. It's like, no, that's a no.
So in the first
Discerning our yeses and no's. Again.
We're kickstarting a movie. That's happening. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
In the first segment, we talked a little bit about messaging and what the lack of condoms is. What message that sends out to the public. Based on the videos that I did see and based on a few articles that I did read on hentai, is there a possibility that this type of animated porn is kind of glorifying something as serious as rape or pedophilia?
I think that there is that possibility. I think we would be fools to say, no, that never happens, and that's where it gets complicated and messy, and we really have to be talking about it. But one of the recurring things that comes up is this idea that rape porn causes rape, and there really is not clear evidence about it. What it does do, though, is contributes to a cultural climate that enables rape to continue without us understanding what rape is. And there's a difference between causation and creating a climate in which we really need to interrupt those patterns, and then understand, again, that there's fantasy and that there is reality. Rape fantasy is not necessarily bad or wrong. Rape reality, absolutely wrong.
And also, it goes back to one thing about Japan, so not being Christian, they don't think children are asexual angels, that somehow at age 18, sexuality is a continuum from being held warmly at the breast to being taught about your body and taught boundaries and good touch and bad touch and okay, now you need a lock on your door. I get it, and so how children are sensual beings, and the sensuality eventually will turn into sexuality when hormones and age kick in. And what they've learned before that makes all the difference in how they're able to interact in the world with potential partners and able to say things like, I don't like that. How can we teach young girls or boys to say, I don't like that? Because how many young people get into things because of pressure? Scaredy, coward, you're a pussy, you're a faggot.
Put the tentacle wherever you want.
And instead of, wow, I'm not ready for that yet, but it's cool, go find someone else who does. So we don't socialize our children healthfully around sexual expression because they're not supposed to know anything about it. And all of a sudden they're supposed to know something about it. What is it? Someone comic said, sex is disgusting and dirty and horrible, and you should save it for someone you love. So we give children very mixed messages about sex and sexuality and sensuality, and how we role model the relationships in front of them, and et cetera, et cetera. So helping young people learn how to say no, thank you would be a lot better, more effective than trying to shield their eyes from media.
And in order to know how to say no, or what we want to say no to, we have to know what we want to say yes to, and that gets left out of our conversations.
Because they're not supposed to want to say yes. Yeah. But when I was 14, I didn't want intercourse, but I sure did like necking. Right. That was fun. Kissing, that was awesome. And I would have done more kissing, but I didn't know how to stop before it got too far. So I didn't know that you could stop anywhere on the continuum that you wanted to stop. I thought if I went past first base, it was going to go to intercourse. I wasn't ready for intercourse, so I didn't do a lot of necking in high school. If I had been told, you can say, "Yo, Kevin, totally down for the feeling the boobie through and some kissing, and that enough for you
That's
tonight?"
Sweet. I might try to steal second base, but I'll stop it first.
And just,
Is that
but
fair?
we don't. But I'm supposed to I'm supposed to not have desires or boundaries. You're supposed to do all the asking and pushing. I'm supposed to do all the resisting.
Right.
So all the boundary settings left to girls, and you're supposed to poke.
I would love a clearly defined game plan versus.
Thank you.
Is this crossing the line? Does a buzzer go off?
Boys are good with rules. If young women can be taught that they get to say what it is they like and explain to you, I'm not being a slut, but here's what I'm interested tonight. Right. Yes or no?
Please, young women, tell me.
Thank you.
But also,
all young women.
The more that young women are allowed to be sexual, the less we're called sluts, or that young women are called sluts, the more we can get clear about our yeses and nos and pleasure
and the pressure
danger.
on boys to be sexual before they're ready. Some boys are actually not ready for that at 14. Thank you. Yeah. And yet they're supposed to be wanting it all the time. And we're not supposed to want it at all, but I meet some young women in my business, and I ask them, when do you start having sex? And they'll say an age under, sometime in high school. And when do you start liking it? Oh, right away. So some women have always liked it. Their bodies have always said, this is pretty good. And some young men would like to wait a few years before they're pushed into, and we don't allow for that. You want it all the time. We're never supposed to want it at all because we're sluts, and then boom.
The double standard is incredible, and I love that the Japanese are open when it comes to sexuality, as Kevin pointed out earlier in the segment. The fact that they look at this type of pornography when they're on the train, that's fascinating. It's really interesting to see how open they are. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time, but I want to thank our panelist, Kevin Pereira, host of the Pointless podcast. Where can people watch you?
They can go to supercreative.tv. That is my production company, my website. You can see all sorts of TV shows there that you'll never actually want to watch on an actual television.
Oh, why not?
It's like, oh, the YouTube kids, they're going to love this if you put it on a screen. No, it's not exactly the case. So go to supercreative.tv, check out my stuff, and see the Anna episode of the Pointless podcast, which just got posted.
Definitely. Shira Tennant, tell us a little bit more about the book that's coming out in 2013. I can't wait to hear about
2014, New Views on Pornography. I'm co-editing it with Lynn Camella, who's in Las Vegas. And it's a variety of perspectives on all of these sorts of issues that we've talked about. The book that's coming out before that I want to mention is the second edition of Men Speak Out, Views on Gender, Sex, and Power. Okay. And it includes 2 essays in particular about pornography from very different perspectives. One gentleman who is anti-porn and another who does porn as a queer porn performer. Wow. that might be of interest to viewers.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
And last but not least, Nina Hartley, what are you working on these days? Where can people see more of you?
If you're over 18, you can go to nina.com. If you're under 18, you can look me up on YouTube. My Tuesdays with Nina teaching videos, PG-13 teaching videos, have migrated off the original site onto YouTube. I'm also working these days with the woodhullalliance.org and the Woodhull Foundation affirms sexual freedom as a fundamental human right. And their newest thing is Family Matters, familymattersproject.org. And why does family matter? So we signed a human rights bill right after the war that affirmed the right to family. And it did not say family meaning a nuclear family with a husband, a wife, and babies. Family, the right to family. And so we are working to gain recognition for all families of all shapes and sizes.
Excellent. All right. And also thanks to this week's Point contributors, radio personality and sex tourist Rush Limbaugh, as well as Dr. Carol Queen of the Center for Sex and Culture. To find out more about her work, you can visit sexandculture.org. I'm Anna Kasparian. You can see me every day on the Young Turks or at youtube.com/TYT Live from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday, and also on Current TV. We'll see you guys next week with another episode.